Good morning, everybody. This is T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to Building a Career That Matters. The subject today is all about credentials. And as I said as a bit of a preview, that there is this mistaken notion that the only thing that constitutes credentials are academic degrees and association certifications, to which I say nonsense. While those are two forms of credentials, there are a dozen other forms of credentials that we'd like to take a look at. So what are your real qualifications, and how do you go about documenting those qualifications as credentials? So let's go ahead and explore this in some detail. Now, I would suggest that you guys use today's call as a self-check, so as a bit of a personal inventory. As we work our way through the 14 different categories of credentials, we want you to ask yourself, to what degree have you completed that set of credentials for yourself? So have you ever come up with anything to serve as evidence of that credential, in which case you've got 0% complete? Or have you really exhaustively documented everything associated with that particular type of credential, in which case you can give yourself 100%? But I want you to always be grading yourself, grading your existing business model and business approach against these little ideas that we throw at you over the course of building a career that matters. So we're going to take inventory of your credentials. There are 14 different categories that we've identified, and inside of each category, there are dozens of possibilities. And so we've been rather hard pressed to find any human development professional that's been in business for even a year who is not able to come up with credentials in at least 10 out of the 14 categories. So with that, let's get into what these different categories are all about, and we'll see how it all unfolds. So now again, we do want to make sure you guys know that you can communicate with us at any time. So there's a question panel there. You can type us any question anytime you want, or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to unmute you and let you share openly. Okay, so let's get in these categories. Number one, let's get the two obvious ones out of the way. Academic credentials. So academic credentials is obviously, what you do for as far as your college education is concerned. So what degrees do you hold, from where, in what subjects? So these are all of your earned degrees. Now, some of you might have actually earned an honorary degree. Among our ChangeWorks community members, we do have some people that have been very significant contributors to their communities, or very strong contributors to their alma maters or whatever, and some of them have actually been granted some honorary degrees. And beyond that, a lot of the human development professionals we work with do hold faculty positions. Some of them are actually professors on the roster at a given institution. Others are serving more as an adjunct professor. And so these are people who really are in private practice, who have been asked by a educational institution to provide some sort of programming, pretty much as an outsider. And so you're being brought in to teach one specific topic to one specific class. And usually it's adjunct professors are doing things that are non-credit courses. So this isn't part of a student's curriculum for getting whatever their degree happens to be. It's more about the College of Lifelong Learning sorts of things, or when universities are offering courses to businesses in their community. This tends to be where these faculty positions or adjunct professor positions tend to come from. And so I can only hope that all of you have taken some time to write down whatever your academic credentials are. But think about all three of these. You've got earned degrees, you've got honorary degrees, you've got faculty positions as well. So a very easy one. I'll assume we don't have any or many questions around this one, but I'll open it up. Anyone have any thoughts, concerns, comments, questions about academic credentials? Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. One thing does come up. Depending on what your subject is, we might actually suggest that you hide your academic credentials. I'll give you an example of this. As all of you know, by this stage of the training, I've had an extensive career providing sales training programs to large and small corporations all around the world. In that particular arena, it's interesting. The audience is not really all that impressed by the fact that you have a PhD or that you have a master's degree in this or that. Most people that are professionals in the sales arena are more impressed by your sales background. So, what are those credentials? We'll be talking about street credentials and professional credentials a little bit further down on the list of things. But we've warned people, if you're going to stand in front of a group of people who basically believe that unless you've walked their walk and talked their talk, you've got no business standing in front of them, you may want to hold back on putting the credentials front and center. So sometimes those credentials make the audience members wonder, does this person have any practical experience, or have they just devoted their entire life to the pursuit of academic excellence, which is all fine and dandy, but it does not automatically endear you to every audience. For many of the kinds of programs that human development professionals could be presenting, those credentials could actually serve as a bit of a barrier because it tends to, separate you from the people you're talking to. I mean, you have a PhD and they don't. You've got a lot of academic background, they don't. So you just have to be really sensitive to what credentials do I have and which of these credentials would really help me to advance my relationship with my clients. So you might have all the academic credentials anyone's ever dreamt of having. By all means, you should write them down so that you've got them, but you'll need to make a choice about when and with whom to share that kind of information. Okay, questions, comments about academic credentials? Okay, the next obvious one are industry specific credentials. And so most people in the world of human development belong to one or more large associations, and those associations tend to offer some sort of a credentialing program. So, you can become, multiple levels inside of ICF, inside the world of speaking. There's different sorts of credentials, designations you can earn. ASTD has got their own on the trainer side of things. And so pretty much any association is leaning towards some sort of standardization, some standards of excellence, something like that. And so they tend to create programming around that those credentials to help people come up to that level, and it also is a source of revenue for a lot of the associations, and it adds credibility to what the association stands for. There's lots of good reasons why someone would want to have this. So industry specific credentials are about these designations that you hold from that association, certifications that you've earned, and by the way, sometimes those certifications aren't at the like aren't at the level of you're a coach or you're a trainer. It's not at that overall role, but you get certified in specific tools or techniques or different programs that you're offering. So it's a little bit more about being certified in a certain part of intellectual property as opposed to being certified as a fill in the blank whatever your role happens to be. And there's also lots of awards and recognitions that you could earn as you start to work within one of those associations. And so, for example, in the world of the National Speakers Association, there is one award called the CPAE. The CPAE award stands for something in Latin, so I couldn't begin to tell you what the Latin words are, but this is an award that is granted to a speaker by their peers. And so it's all based on peer review. It's all based on peer nominations. Peers and only peers can vote. And so, but it is considered to be quite the award to get. And then there's the most coveted of all the awards in the National Speakers Association, which is the Cavett Cup. And this cup is about the one speaker in a year who has achieved the highest level of excellence, not only professionally, but among their peers, and about volunteering and all that sort of thing. So it's one of those like lifetime achievement sorts of things. Well, in the world of speaking, if you can slap CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, which any of them can qualify for if they meet the requirements. Or you throw CPAE, now you've stood up from your peers and you had that final one that you're the Cavett Cup winner. Now something really remarkable is happening. And so inside of each of these associations, industries, whatever, there's these opportunities. So the question comes to all of you, have you written down what all of your industry specific credentials are? What are your designations? What are your certifications? What are all the awards and recognitions that you've received? So certainly going back to the academic credentials and the association credentials seem to be the place that people put most of their emphasis when we ask them what their credentials really are. And it's all good stuff, and it'll probably continue to serve you pretty well. But at a certain point in time, the buying public puts less and less emphasis on your academic credentials and on your industry specific credentials, and more emphasis on 12 other types of credentials. And so, let's move on to these that are a little less focused upon. So, any questions about industry specific credentials, or so far, do y'all get it? You probably got plenty of these things to point to. You just need to document it. Document it. Okay, so let's go on. The next one, networking credentials. Networking credentials say that you are someone who is actively involved in the community that you are working in, or the community of professionals that you happen to be part of. So, what groups do you belong to? Not again professional associations, but more like the chambers, that sort of thing. What are your networking credentials? What's the memberships that you hold? So, I'm a member of this. I'm a member of that. I'm a member of that. Now, it's not enough to just say, I'm a member. You want to take it up a notch and say, and here's how I participate. So this, you can say that I'm actively involved in this particular outreach program, or I'm actively involved in this particular group that's delivering services that the association wants. For example, inside of the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, there are lots of volunteer opportunities, things that you can participate in. And so whether you are, heading up this committee, or whether you're handling this particular project or whatever, there's lots of these things that say, not only am I a member, but I actively participate. I'm actually contributing to this organization beyond whatever it is that's happening. And then finally, it's positions. These are when you get elected into being, the chairperson or the program chair, or whatever the actual real, rank and file position might happen to be. So we want people to go, if I'm going to go out there and network anyway, how do I leverage this to enhance my credentials? And certainly being able to list yourself as a member of this organization, that organization, okay, fine. But we want you to really go like, I'm not just a member, I'm doing stuff, I'm participating. Later on, we talk about networking as a technique for building your business. We'll tell you it does you little good to just be a member of an organization. You got to get out there and participate. It's by participating you actually meet people, and people get to know more about you and what you're all about. Whether you want to go on and actually take on one of the formal positions or not, that's up to you, and how much time and energy you have to put into the running of whatever that group happens to be. But nevertheless, these are the possibilities that are there. So right now, would you guys say that you are out there networking? You are the member of different networking kinds of groups. Would you say you're an active participant? For example, when I lived in Michigan, there was a networking group called Business Network, and Business Network is different than today's BNI, Business Network International. This was just Business Network, and the way that people really participated was by coming to an event and say, at this particular event, rather than just being a member who's here trying to meet people, I'm going to serve the role as a weaver. And as a weaver, what my job is to talk to the people that are there, ask them, who are you here to meet? And then my job as a weaver is to find that person that they really want to meet and make the introduction. And so weavers are all about connecting people during a networking opportunity. Most networking opportunities that we are aware of do not have weavers. And as a result, the benefit of attending such an event is less than it could be. Again, we get back to positions. If you've held one of these positions, by all means, you've now got some networking credentials. So let me put all of you guys to the test for just a second. Right now, when it comes to networking, are you serving purely as a member and you go to these events and hope to meet somebody there? Are you actively participating as that weaver, or as the greeter, or the outreach person, or whatever? Or do you hold a formal position? So how involved are you guys right now when it comes to doing the professional networking? Daniel's saying he's an active weaver, and that's remarkable. I mean, no one meets more people than a weaver, and being a weaver gives you an excuse to walk up to anybody and provide some real value. Um, Barney is sharing that I've never been satisfied to be just a member. I'm deeply involved. And this is what it really needs to be. Um, Dinah is sharing here. She's the president-elect of ICF Colorado. This is fantastic. And so this is what we really want to do. If you're going to take your time and energy to go to a networking event, then you should be moving from a member to a participant to a position holder just, because you're there anyway. You might as well get full benefit out of it. But are you then listing it among your credentials? And so these credentials, if we were to create it out as an expanded curriculum vitae or something like that, offers some evidence that you are not just someone who is flying in, swooping down, grabbing an opportunity to work with a client, and then swooping out. No, you're committed. You're involved. People know you. They know of you. That they know what's going on. And who knows? You might list something that people go like, "Oh, I know someone who's part of that," or "Oh, I'm involved in a similar kind of an organization." So there's lots of creative ways to leverage this kind of connection. Um, yeah, Barney is sharing. I feel it vital to invest myself, not to just show up. Couldn't agree with you more. I think that, well, also, let's put it this way, it also makes things more comfortable for people. When we go to networking events, one of my observations is that people form cliques. They tend to talk to people at the event they already know, in which case it's not networking. It's just yet another, cocktail hour. We want to say, if you are uncomfortable walking up to a stranger and striking up a conversation with them, then become an active participant in the organization. Be that greeter, be the weaver, be the whatever role that they need, be the MC, be the announcer, be the whatever it needs to be, just so you're meeting all these people in a way that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable approaching them and being approached. And again, if you want to hold a position, that's really great, but those positions always involve a higher level of commitment in your time and energy. So if you guys have got that time, by all means, hold that position. But you can get a lot of value out of any kind of these organizations just by becoming a more active participant. So yep. Okay, great. Okay, other questions, comments about networking credentials? And again, you guys should be scoring yourself. So when it comes to academic credentials, what percentage of completion are you giving yourself when it comes to the professional association sorts of things, and now the networking credentials? Um, let's see, Lori sharing. I've not been networking, but as I contemplate attending some to expand my biz, this is great info. Yeah. And later on, we will be talking for a whole hour just about how to get the most out of attending a networking event. So we think people do make some pretty fundamental errors in their preparation and their behavior when they get to such an event. So we'll talk that in more detail to help equip you guys. But one little preview from that program, we really believe that your primary motivation for joining a networking organization is because you care about the people that are part of the networking organization. If you're only going to a networking event hoping to be connected to somebody outside of this group that's there, well, then you're kind of like using the people who've shown up at the networking event rather than supporting one another. And so you got to make sure you're aligning yourself with people you genuinely enjoy being with, and then let the business roll from there. Okay, anyway, those are networking credentials. Let's see if there's any questions over here. Yeah, this is true personal leadership. Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Program credentials. Program credentials gets back a little bit to that intellectual property. What courses have you completed? What certifications have you completed? So next we're going to be talking about the roadblock of a lack of professional development. In our studies, we found out that some third of human development professionals currently in practice have done nothing to expand their offerings, their credentials in 10 years plus. So that's all good if they've got this the very traditional foundational sorts of stuff. That's all they focus on. But we got to keep ourselves developing if we really hope to help others to develop as well. So one of those ways we help ourselves to develop more is by looking at the different kinds of courses that are available to us and completing different sorts of certifications and designations related to that. Many organizations require people to complete X number of continuing education units in order to maintain their designation. So they completely get this. It is not enough for someone to just complete initial coursework and graduate successfully. We need this continuing investment in an individual's development, professional development, and how do we keep track of that? How do we document that? What are the courses you've completed, and what are the certifications you've completed? Um, with rare exception, we haven't found that any of the, like 500 plus professionals that we've worked with over these years, they don't document this. They just go to the program thinking like, oh, it was a fun program. I learned a lot. I met some people. But we go, where is it on your curriculum vitae? Where is it on your credentials? They go like, oh, well, I didn't think anyone would care about that. It could be very interesting to include it. And this whole point about your credentials is we're going like you need to make your lists. Whether you ultimately share every single line item with your prospective or existing customers or not, that's not the question. The question is, have you done your inventory? Do you have all these stuff, properly documented? So hopefully you guys are thinking right now about all the different programs you've attended. Have you put it down there? Whenever you're sharing, I've noted that while people may not ask about credentials, they check them out, and it does matter in the decision making, even in an unspoken fashion. Well, exactly right. And I think that when it comes to program credentials, what this does is shows that you are someone who continues to be a student. You are interested in making sure that you always have state of the industry programs, products, and services to offer people, and you're doing your own personal journey. So you're learning some stuff about yourself as well. So so the point of this program, though, is documenting it. So what was the name of the course? Where was it held? When was it held? What was your basic takeaway from it? So write perhaps a sentence or two that just says, here's what I learned during that program that is making me a better professional today. Again, it's not a question of whether or not you are ever going to share all this information with your existing and prospective clients. It's just about, have you documented this so that you have this information? One of the things that we hope comes out of someone doing this full inventory is that their level of confidence is boosted because they can see their credentials. So sometimes I believe that the most powerful way that your credentials serve you is not because it impresses other people, but because it impresses you. And when you're impressed with yourself and you go like, wow, I have done a lot. Wow, I have earned the right to do what I do and talk about what it is that I like to talk about. I think this is helping you to get your mind in the right place to have more impactful conversations with your prospective and existing clients and everybody else you meet along the way. So this is more for you than anything else. That's why it's early in the program. Okay, those are program credentials. Again, score yourself. How would you rate yourself right now as far as documenting program credentials? Not grading yourself on how many of them you've gone and done, but have you documented them? Have you written them down in some form that you can tap into when and if you ever want to use that? Okay, the next one are your historical credentials. Historical credentials are the very typical sort of stuff. Well, let's see, we got a comment here. We encourage our children to keep learning and to not take their diploma as a final stage of learning, just to start. Well, exactly. I kind of think that your academic degree was, kind of like this was just the transition from my high school education to adulthood. This is not where my learning ends. This is where my learning begins. And you know what? The learning that you have in the academic side of things may ultimately not be the learning that helps you to do what you're doing right now. For example, my educational background is in environmental toxicology. So right now I can tell you which houseplants you can and can't eat and why you should never put the stuffing in the bird at Thanksgiving time. But I certainly don't use my background in environmental toxicology when I'm conducting a program on building a career that matters. But I like to think that I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about studying, and I learned a lot about communicating with other people when I was involved in toxicology, because there was a lot of community outreach that needed to be done. And working at poison control centers and things like that, there was a lot of interaction had to have with people who are in very tension-filled situations. And so I may not talk about the subject matter, but certainly I think that there was a value in having that overall experience. So anyway, historical credentials, we tend to think of this as the resume or your curriculum vitae. Now, obviously, most people in private practice think that they should never have a resume. Why should they have a resume? They're in private practice. They're not applying for jobs or anything like that. And so we tend to then lean more towards a curriculum vitae. Curriculum vitae, a Latin phrase that translate the course of my life. So curriculum is a course, vitae is your life. So your curriculum vitae is the course of your life. A curriculum vitae contains all information, where a resume might be very selective and it's going to obviously say, here's what I've been doing educationally, and you don't want gaps and all that. It tends to be a bit more selective about what it would include when it comes to ongoing education or something like that, because the thought is, hey, I'm putting together this resume because I'm trying to get this particular job. So of all the things I've ever done, what's going to be most useful to me in showing this person why they should hire me instead of someone else? So I think of a resume as being the result of extracting key things from your curriculum vitae. Your curriculum vitae contains all the information, everything you've ever done. In a fully fleshed out CV, it would even include where you went to high school. It might include things about what you accomplished. Even back then, this is the course of your life. And there's nowhere that it says the course of your adult life. It just says this is the course of your life. And so you keep track of everything. So if you've written articles, the curriculum vitae would contain every single article you've ever written. If you've gone to a lot of conferences and conventions, it would list every single one of those that you've attended and that. So the curriculum vitae is complete. And then from that curriculum vitae, we can extract. I would imagine that most of you would be better served by having a curriculum vitae than by having a resume. There are still times, though, when I've gone after certain corporate projects where they've said, could you just put together a resume for us? Because although we're not hiring you like an employee, we are still hiring you. And so it would be really nice to be able to provide evidence that you are fully qualified for what it is we're asking you to do. So they might ask for a resume, but more often than not, what you want to have is that curriculum vitae. So how many of you right now have got a curriculum vitae underway? Yeah, guys building it? Good, good, good. Um, Barney is sharing, boy, that resonates. All the articles I've written and things published, never thought about recording them. Oh, this is vitally important in the world of credentials. Because again, as I said, as your career moves forward, less and less power is about that academic background. Because if nothing else, it's getting older and older and older. So I mean, I'm in my mid 50s. We've got colleagues that are in their 70s, even in their 80s. The academic degree they received when they were 20, okay, that's that's 3/4 of their life ago. So you kind of go like, wait, there's got to be something more contemporary, something more relevant that I'm going to put the emphasis on, and that's where we get to this kind of stuff we're talking about with the articles that you're writing and things that you're surfing on. Let's see, getting lots of comments here. Okay. Do you think it is relevant for serving solopreneurs? Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that one of the things that I want to establish with any of my clients right away is that I am the authority. Not I am an authority. I am the authority, and so I want them to know, even if they're like I'm a solo practitioner. I'm dealing with another solo practitioner. I don't want this to feel informal. I don't want to present myself in an informal kind of way at this early stage of things. I want to let them know I am an expert, and I want to present myself as that as well. So again, that idea about having that CV is that it enhances me in my own estimation of myself. It also enhances me as I present myself to others. Let's see. One of you is sharing. I shan't share the name. I feel I need to hang my head in shame here. I can't believe I haven't been documenting these things. Oh, and this is just 5 out of 14. We've got 9 more that are going on here. So I'm saying, like, all you guys just need to carve out a couple hours of time and say, it's time for me to document what my life has really contained. These are my credentials. So let's talk about the next one. This gets into what Barney was saying a moment ago. Publication credentials. Where have you been published? Well, let's look at the different possibilities. Uh, Letters, articles, white papers, books, audio, video, web programs. These tend to be the collection of things that have been published. Now, people go like, well, I've never had an article published in a major magazine or anything like that. How many of you have read something in a magazine or in like the Wall Street Journal and you had an opinion about what was written? Do you realize that if you wrote the editor a letter about what has been published and give some sort of inside opinion, whatever, obviously it's got to be well written, worth sharing, they will publish your letter or an excerpt of your letter. And the moment they do that, you can say that you've had letters published in the Wall Street Journal, or you had a letter published in the American Journal of, dot, dot, dot. So you may not be writing articles and white papers and books and all that, but I gotta believe you've got opinions. And if you take a moment to write that opinion out and send it in, and they choose to publish whatever it is, you can say that your thoughts have been published, your insights, your opinions have been published in whatever it is. And it's absolutely true. You wrote a letter to the editor published it, so why not do that? Why not? Why not? Why not? Now, take it up a step. I got to believe that every single person we've ever certified, and certainly the lion's share of anyone who goes through Building a Career That Matters, has got something to say that they could write up as an article and submit it to wherever, whoever, however. Now, these articles in the good old days were always being submitted to print publications, and you can still do that. Those opportunities might be getting more and more limited, but our opportunity to get published online is getting greater and greater. And there's even all those article databases that people can go to, like I'm trying to think of the one I was part of, articles.com, authors.com. Linda would be able to tell me better. But I just started submitting articles. And the next thing you know is I get a coffee mug that says I'm a top contributor. And so it's like, really? I've only sent you like 50 articles. How can that be a top contributor? But it was. So these articles can get published in print publications and web-based publications. They can be done in anthologies. So are you writing articles? Now, keep in mind that if you write an article, you can list it as an article that you've written. You can then make a separate notation that says this was published here, or a variation of this was published here, but you've still written the article. And so why not go ahead and list all those articles? We're in the process right now of moving my entire article series that I've written over the years up onto the website. And by my latest estimate, there's some 250 articles that I could be moving up there. And so I thought, well, before I start to just load up all these articles, it might be nice to figure out how I'm going to help people find an article. So I need to be putting in some keywords or things like that so they could just do a search and say, show me all the articles that you've written about sales or about leadership or change management or tension management or whatever the case may be. So at a certain point, if you just start writing and writing and writing, you can do that. Now, another credential, the other variation, Lori's just brought up, what about a newsletter? If you have been publishing a newsletter for a certain point in time, you should certainly say this. So here's my newsletter. It's been going on for, 8 years now. I've published 96 different issues of all this. A lot of what makes it feel like a useful credential is that there's some substance to it. So when you can say, 250 articles published in 83 different publications. They've been republished umpteen times online or borrowed and distributed umpteen times online, retweeted X number of times. This is what we're talking about as far as article publications and that are concerned. Okay, the next category are white papers. It's interesting how many people use the word white paper. They say they have a white paper, and then I ask them, what is a white paper? So who among you can actually tell me what the technical definition is of a white paper? What makes it a white paper? See if we can do. Newsletters, yep, did that. Oh yeah, Barney just said newsletter submissions as a contributor jumps at me. That's true. There's a lot of people out there with newsletters, and they're like any other print publication, are scrambling for some good content. So why not say, hey, this is what it's about? In fact, that's where those article databases came from. We'd basically say, if you're publishing a newsletter and you're looking for some content, you can come to this article announcer, you can come to whatever this database happens to be, and then they can pull it out of there. And as long as they give you fair credit in the they can publish it widely. So absolutely right. Okay, here it is. A white paper, a treatise on any subject. That's absolutely right. Here's the technical difference. To put it as simply as possible, a white paper is unpublished research. So a white paper is an idea you have. It's about preliminary sort of data that you're discovering. It doesn't have the level of academic sorts of restrictions placed on it that true research does. And so usually before someone is going to submit something to their peers for peer review, for publication in a serious journal or something like that, it exists as a white paper. Whether it ever gets vetted and published, that's a totally different story, and it falls into a little different kind of a category here. In fact, it would probably be an article, is what it qualifies there. You could also add here that you have published research, but that published research almost always takes the form of an article, so I put it in there. But white papers, anybody can be writing a white paper. You just take any subject that you feel passionate about, you do your research around it, and you do that. You then write up whatever your insights, thoughts, findings are. That's what a white paper really is. Now, if you ever want to submit that white paper for see if it'll pass muster in the world of academic research and all that, it's going to have to meet a lot higher standards. So you're going to need to document everything properly and cite everything properly. And there's certain stylistic things that have to be put in place, and certain things that you can't really say. Like in a white paper, you're welcome to share your opinions about something, and the opinions don't necessarily have to be grounded in anything other than your personal experience. If we're going to take that white paper and now submit it for serious publication as a piece of real research, I promise you, your opinions and that are going to have to be grounded on something more than your own insights. Okay, wait, that's a white paper. A book. I've always believed that there's a book inside of everybody. It might be difficult to pull out if they view it as this overwhelming task, but people who write a lot of articles or do newsletters or operate a blog, these are all different forms of publishing your thoughts, and if you compile them, they become a book. And so, why can't you say that, okay, this year I'm going to be doing a blog posting once a week. And at the end of the year, you've now got 52 blog postings. Each one of those blog postings could be at least a page, if not a couple of pages, or maybe they could be the foundation for a chapter to really be written. And so creating a book is easier now than ever before. A lot of people are self-publishing, and we can get into that as Building a Career That Matters continues. But point is, there's a book. And if you've written a book, or even you've written something that got quoted in a book, or something that was a contribution to a book, maybe they took one little chapter that you wrote or something like that, this is another great credential enhancer on the publication side of things. And certainly you can take your articles, and you can take your blog postings, and you can take all your newsletter things, and you can turn it into an audio sort of a thing. So one of the things that we are playing with is me being on camera, just reading one of my articles, kind of like a fireside chat with tea. For people who aren't really all about reading it, maybe we can just say, here it is, put it in your queue, and you can watch this article being read. We'll throw in a few graphics to make it more interesting or whatever. But audio programs, video programs, web-based programs, these are all just natural extensions. And so the question for you is, have you documented all the letters that you've written, the articles, articles, the white papers. I mean, how many of these have you actually created and you know, didn't document them to be able to serve you as a credential? We know lots of people in our industry that have got a YouTube channel, but if I go to their website, the fact that they operate a YouTube channel is just hidden someplace. They don't basically say, "Hey, you know, the YouTube channel is now has, you know, X number of hours of content, X number of videos," and so we want people to view that there. Um, yeah, Barney is sharing here something that I've learned years and years ago, that people are starved for great content. One of the big struggles in the world of publishing is that they need to have really good content. We all know this, that all those print publications make their money by selling advertising, but it is the content of the magazine that makes someone want to buy that copy, so buy the copy of that publication. And so they need content and they are desperate for it, which is why we see so much recycled content. So, you know, if you got an article inside of you, write that article. And don't think for one moment that a print publication won't be interested in you. I do know this for certain. They can't hire you if they don't know you exist. And so you can pick up any print publication, and within the first couple of pages, you're going to find this, it's called a colophon, but basically it's an area where they list, here's the publisher, here's all our key contact people, and usually it'll also have about article submission guidelines, or you can certainly go online and look up the article submission guidelines for a particular publication. And usually it's just that they need it to be X number of words, and you know, it's got to be around certain subjects, and you submit it. You might be surprised how eager they are to publish something that you've written. Okay, these are publication credentials, so all of you should be doing at least some of these different forms of publication. Next thing, presentation credentials. Presentation credentials means you've stood in front of a group of people and you've done something. So are you the MC of a particular program? Are you the program chair and you are doing all the welcome, meet, greet, introduction kind of stuff? Are you the presenter who is standing in front of the audience delivering whatever that program content may be? Are you serving on a panel for some sort of a discussion? Are you the moderator of one of these panel things? So inside of a CV, you would list all of the events that you've gone to where you have served as either the presenter, the solo presenter, the part of the panel, you've moderated it, you've been the host, the MC, whatever. So I think this is really vitally important. Now, because my background was as a trainer, this was one of the credentials that I kept closest track of. So right now I can say that as a solo presenter, I have presented well over 3,500 engagements in front of audiences. I have stood in front of audiences for more than 25,000 hours. I have spoken in every state in the United States, every province of Canada, in 28 countries around the world, and on 5 of the 7 seas. So these are I have spoken everywhere you can think of, for every size audience you can imagine, not just once, but dozens, if not hundreds of times. And so over the course of 30 some odd years, it's amazing what your presentation credentials are going to add up to. Now, those of you who aren't, trainers or speakers, you've still been asked to participate in your role as a consultant or as a coach. Maybe you've been on a panel. Maybe you've been someone who was asked to provide part of a demonstration for a group. And so you were, part of that demonstration faculty or whatever. So you were a participant in whatever that presentation happens to have been. So there's a lot of opportunity here for you guys to gain a lot of credentials. And I might say to you that if you don't have these credentials right now, seek out opportunities to be the host or the moderator. When you get to do that, you get to stand in front, and you don't have the burden of having to actually deliver the core content. You just get to welcome everybody and make the introduction and talk about what's coming up. They still get to know you. You still get FaceTime. It still gives you the credibility points that you would never get if you were just sitting in the audience. So I hate being in the audience. Let me go get up front and do something, regardless of which of these 4 it might be. Okay, these are presentation credentials. How many of you have got presentation credentials that you have not documented as thoroughly as you could? Someone's saying they've lost the audio. Are you guys hearing me, yay or nay? Can y'all hear me? Yep, you guys are hearing me. Okay, fine. Um, let's see. Thanks to this class, I've done a lot more than I've documented, given myself credit for, or used in my CV or marketing where appropriate. Exactly. This is it. I want you guys to call recognize. It's inventory time. Inventory time. We're at the start of the springtime. Let's see what it is that you've got that you can build on this year coming forward. So you will feel so great about yourself, or even greater about yourself, when you complete this exercise. Oops, scrolled too fast. Let's go back one. Sorry. So now we're getting into street credentials. And I'm going to tell you that, in my personal opinion, this is the most important set of credentials that you're going to amass. And at a certain point in time, these credentials will subordinate all the other 13 types if you've got these kinds of credentials. So let's talk about this. Street credentials. This is your reputation. So your reputation can be set by your client list. So I've always wondered why it is that someone who is doing speaking, training, coaching, consulting services wants to target businesses that no one has ever heard of. So why don't we go like, no, if I ever want to be the top in my field, I need to work with top of mind companies. I need to have clients that enhance my credibility just by virtue of the fact that I've worked with them. And so, who's on your client list? What's that client list look like? And this is, again, just a list of the names of the companies or organizations you've actually worked with. If you work only with individuals, well, your client list is going to be pretty tough to put forward if for no other reason than confidentiality issues that arise. So, but client list, for those who are working with organizations, this is it. I always want to know, will this training program, will this speaking engagement, will this whatever enhance my client list? If it does, then I'm going to give it a bit more energy than if it didn't. So client list. Now, the client list is great, but if you don't have organizational clients, then we want to move on to the next one, testimonials. Testimonials are feedback that you have captured from the client that gives great evidence of the value that they feel they receive from working with you. So testimonials are great little things. These are just statements, and there's a way, we'll be talking about getting better testimonials when we start talking about client-based saturation. But one of the things that makes it difficult for most people to get good testimonials is they approach it this way. They basically say to their customer, their client, they say, "Well, you've just given me some really beautiful feedback. Thank you for all those kind words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Could you write some of that down? I'd love to share that with other people." Well, what they've just done is they have placed a burden upon that individual's shoulders to carve out the time to write this all up and send it over to you. So right there, our likelihood of getting the testimonial has just dropped considerably. But let's say they do take the time and write the testimonial, and they send it to you. How often have you read what they've written and went like, "Oh, this is not what they said," or "Wow, this is not really said the way that I wish it was being said. This is clumsy," or "It doesn't kind of put the emphasis where I'd want the emphasis placed." Ugh, so great, they gave me a testimonial, but I'm not so sure I can really use this in the form they've given it to me. So I got to believe most of you have received such a thing. Well, we believe that the best way for you to get testimonials is to have a normal conversation with someone, and when they say something really great about you or about your service or their experience, say to them, "That was really wonderful. Would you mind if I wrote down what I just heard you say? And then I'm going to email it over to you, and you can look it over and see if it's right. I'd love to share it with people, but I don't want you to have the burden of writing it all up and that. So let me do that work for you. You said something really great. I'll encapsulate it in a statement. I'll send it over to you for your final input and approval, and then I'd like to be able to share that." Well, obviously, if you're going to take the burden off of them and you now have the opportunity to write it, you send it to them, and they will say to you what they say to us all the time. They go like, "That is so much. That sounds so much better than I would have been able to write it. I'm just not a writer. I mean, yeah, this is exactly how I really feel around it." So they're actually glad that you've taken this burden off their shoulders, and you've made them look pretty spiffy in the process. So there is a way to get testimonials. Testimonials are different than recommendations. Recommendations is a little bit more one-to-one. A recommendation is when we say to someone, I've got this prospective client that we're trying to land. Would you be willing to speak with them on our behalf? It's when that now they're making a recommendation. So this is a little bit of a higher level than a testimonial. Testimonials are sound bites that we can capture and share where we get into the recommendations. It's a little bit more again, one-on-one, more focused. Program assessments. If you guys are doing the little smile sheet kinds of things, so at the end of every one of the programs, we ask people what their feedback is, and here's the kind of stuff we've gotten from that. This is also a street credential. Case studies. Case studies, when you have a client who is willing to let you keep track of what their results have been, you can really say, so I was brought into a particular company, which you may name or may keep somewhat confidential, and say, I was asked to do this kind of a work. This is where they were starting from. Here's how they did at the end of the training. Here's how they were 6 months later, and we got it all documented. And so case studies are a very valuable sort of a thing. Track record. This is really about you being able to show how long you've been doing what you've been doing. So when you can say that not only do I have all of these clients and testimonials and recommendations, but these testimonials and recommendations go back not only recently, but go back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So I have a long track record of getting this kind of feedback from people. That's the track record piece. And then the reputation piece is the word that gets spread around you. So, what is your reputation really like? What do you hear people say about you as you go around building all that? So, ultimately, I think that street credentials are what are really going to separate you from your competitors. So. It's the person with the best client list, great testimonials, great assessments, great case studies, a great track record, a great reputation. It's amazing how these will very much trump whatever the academic credential may be. So, yeah, perfect. Oh, yeah, talking about how to get a testimonial. Yeah, never put the burden on the person. Do it. Make it as easy as possible for them to lavish you with praise and share it. Lori is sharing. I often recommend to clients, and do this myself, to set up a Google alert of your name and company name to see what's being said about you online. Yeah, this is right. Now, um, we also want to know what's the person's reputation, even in their professional community, the local community. So are you viewed as someone who is easy to get along with, great to work with? Do people smile when they see you? Or are they like, oh no, they're a piece of work. So stay away from them. They'll bend your ear for too long. Okay, we've got 6 more types. Let's work our way through these so we can finish on time today. Number 9, branding and packaging credentials. Now, this might have to do with your product, but I think of you as being the product. So, what is this image that you have that you're presenting to the world around you? So, what does your photograph look like? What does your overall web presence look like? What do any of the collateral materials that you would be using to package yourself? What does it all look like? And so we want to know, what is that image? What is the quality of the image? So one of the things that we always hold back on when it comes to video is that I don't want to do a video that looks and sounds like I'm just sitting at my desk and I'm using my webcam. A lot of people are doing all that, and fine, they may be conveying great information or whatever. I want a higher level of quality in what's going on. And so this is why in our offices we've got a green screen, and we've got teleprompters, and we've got all the high level editing software anyone could possibly ever need to be able to take the quality up to the level we believe it should be at. And then the last one, of course, is about consistency. If the quality is sporadic, then people are going to wonder what's the quality going to be like when they actually engage your services. So to me, this whole branding and packaging credentials, you've got to decide, what is your image, what's the quality that that image is being presented in or packaged in, and are you doing it in a consistent kind of way? So yeah. Okay. And we'll talk about branding a great deal more when we get into your actual marketing skills. But just to get you thinking right now, how would you grade yourself right now? You're going to show me an old photograph that's grainy. You're going to show me a website that you're going to start to apologize for the way that it's looking because it's out of date. Or do you have something that's really beautiful and the rest looks like junk? What's this all about? So the way you can test for this is I'm going to say to you, gather together in physical form all of the things that you use to represent yourself. And even though if a lot of it's online, go ahead, take a moment, print it all out so you can actually look at all of it. So you can just say in one big glance across the table, do I have consistency in my image? Do I have consistency in the quality? And do I have consistency in the message that I'm giving from one piece to another, to another, to another? So what most people end up with, and you can tell me if this holds true for you, is a hodgepodge collection of miscellaneous things that were really good and beautiful and great at the time for the purpose intended, but now it doesn't really match anymore. It doesn't seem to go together anymore. So basically, we award people with credibility points when they look good, sound good, present themselves well. So even though so much of this is all about cosmetics, the cosmetics really do make a difference in the credibility points that you'll be looking at. How do you tie all this up in a bow and actually use it? Well, Dinah, I would say to you that my advice to anyone who really wants to go through this in great detail is that you need to hire a coach to lead you through all these exercises and take you through these and make sure the work gets done. That's not me. This is a program we do as kind of like an outreach thing to give people, to get them thinking about all these sorts of things. But if any of these subjects really resonate with you, I would encourage you to hire someone as your personal coach or your personal trainer and say, here's the specific system I want to go through. How do I do this? Now, what you're actually building as you work your way through this is you are building a very detailed curriculum vitae. So ultimately, this takes that shape of what that curriculum vitae actually looks like. So, yeah, let's see. Don't you have to focus on what's important to your particular client base? Well, exactly. But here's the thing, Dan. Before I start deciding what I'm going to share with my client base, I have to know what I've got available to me to share with others. So this is why we're saying this inventory, this collection is such an important thing for people to do. So they know this is where I'm starting from. Now, how am I going to use this in order to go after a particular client? That actually becomes a bit easier when you at least know what you're picking from, because you can say, I can use this and I can use this, and this is a credential they think would be very valuable. Okay, wait. So that's the branding credential. 2 minutes left. Let me just quickly share this with you guys. Yeah, Barney is sharing. Incongruency is confusing. Clarity is needed. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And number 10, peer credentials. I talked about these a little bit earlier. Awards, recognitions, and endorsements from your peers. So just looking at the recognition and endorsement part, how often have you had one of your peers say to you, you really are a great coach. You really do something wonderful. You do great presentations. They're basically giving you an endorsement. And while it's great to have recognition and endorsement come from our clients, we also want to have good recognition and endorsements coming from our peers. This is why when someone publishes a book, they want to go to other well-known names in the same field that the prospective purchaser of the book would recognize and say, hey, read my book and give me a little testimonial, give me an endorsement. So they're trying to go like, my peers can most definitely do this. And by the way, when you can get a peer endorsement, and that peer is someone that other people look up to, they automatically look further up to you as well. And so you basically get to ride on those individuals' credibility coattails. So this is one of the reasons why peer credentials can be a very, very important thing as well. A few more quick ones. Media credentials. How often have you been cited in the media for something? Have you been quoted somewhere? Have you been retweeted? So, what are the interviews that you've been asked to do? So, how many of you have done any kind of radio sorts of interviews? Have you listed all of these? A couple more. I hate to go through these quickly, but our time is up, so I might touch base on some of these a bit later. But pedigree credentials, these are when you can get your educators, your colleagues, mentors, and institutions to actually say you've been part of what they've done. So we've got a couple of our ChangeWorks professionals who worked for Ivy League colleges, and they've got all kinds of colleagues back in those places who could support them. So this is an institutional pedigree thing when you can say I worked for X company, or I worked with such and such an institution. So there are pedigree credentials. Philanthropic credentials. Where are you volunteering? Who have you sponsored? What are the causes that you feel most compelled by? When have you served as a spokesperson for something? So, for example, we often see in like retail work that a retailer will decide to sponsor the local little league team and have their whole jerseys made or their t-shirts made, and it's got the name of their sponsorship on there. Or how many of you have ever become a sponsor for a chamber of commerce event or something like that, and you think like, well, I was a sponsor, I got what I got from it. You could get more from it if you say, and I've sponsored this, we're actively involved in this particular cause. I'm willing, in fact, I'll volunteer to be a spokesperson for any cause I really feel deeply about. These are my philanthropic credentials. And I think they can go a very long way. And I think we underestimate this. We're doing all this because it comes out of the goodness of our heart. Let's document it. And now it has that value as well. And then the last one, and I'll finish here, is personal credentials. Your life experience, your life situations, your life conditions can be very powerful credentials. So how many of you I've ever heard a speaker, and the speaker's presentation was all about their personal experience climbing Mount Everest, or someone who's come back from battle and has the battle scars to prove it. And, they're talking about overcoming obstacles or whatever it may be, or someone who has raised 6 children as a single parent or whatever. What are the life experiences, the life situations, or the life conditions that you are in or have been in that have helped you to become the person that you are right now? And so don't think that sharing that you grew up in a less than privileged family and you struggled with this and you had to deal with this adversity and now you're suffering in this kind of a condition. Don't think for one moment that that doesn't enhance your credibility. It does, because it says you've walked a journey that other people have never had to endure, and you've come out of it on the other side of things. You have unique lifetime learnings, etc., because of all these sorts of things. So why hide it? Let's position it as a credibility enhancer. One comment here: the one thing I've documented and leveraged are the personal credentials. Yeah. So, and we've all got these. So we need to recognize this isn't just something I should take for granted, perhaps without getting too philosophical about the whole thing. You were given this life experience, situation, or condition so that you would learn something vitally important to other people. You need to share that you've had that experience, situation, or condition so that they go like, oh, this is the person I've been waiting for. This is the person I can learn from. And so with that, I'll go ahead and end today's call. Just a reminder, there are 14 different forms of credentials that we've identified. There could be even more. Let's please not limit our credentials and our understanding of credentials to just academic degrees and association certifications and designations. There's a lot more to it. And hopefully you guys see what I mean when I said these other 12 can end up having far more impact than those first 2 would. So with that, what are you saying? I had a client tell me today that my personal story is why he chose to work with me. Exactly. Share that story. Who knows who else is in line? And Dinah, thank you so much for that compliment there. Thank you, everyone. Okay, next week our topic is I should do this. All right, sorry, I'm going to take one more minute. How you package and present those credentials. Your bio is one. We talked about your CV. A brag book is in the old days, it was actually a physical book you could hold in your hand. That was like a scrapbook, and it showed all the letters of testimony and photographs of you at all these events, etc. Today, you can create an electronic version of your brag book and call it a brag book. Let people know if you want to know more about me, you can go to the website, click on the brag book, and it'll flip through like a scrapbook and tell you some of the highlights of what it is that we've done. The proof pack is a set of documents, electronic or physical, that you would say, anyone who ever questions anything about me or has any questions about what my background is, here is my proof pack. And you've got these things ready to give them. And then obviously your book is a great way to package and present those credentials. I think that's the last slide. So next week's topic is a lack of professional development. The key question: how do I keep myself current?